either you want to actually be very successful, or you just want to think of yourself as being very successful. But if you actually want to be successful, you got to know when to be the guy and when to step away and let somebody else be the guy.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, creators, and disruptors who are fueling innovation in emerging markets across the country. I'm here with my co-host, Leanne Buchanan.
Hello, everybody.
And we're really excited because today we have with us Ed Herman. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I like that word disruptor. I think I've been a disruptor even as a child. You can ask my mother. It's always disrupting things.
Disrupting things.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Ed, we're going to talk a little bit about that disruptive personality and where it originated from. But before we do, we want to get to know who you are instead of getting into the work stuff.
Sure.
You're the managing partner of Brown Crouppen
Yes.
law firm. But we want to talk a little bit about who you are, what makes you interesting. So what is your superpower and when did you discover it?
Okay, yeah, my superpower is the ability to observe little detailed things that connect us as humans. I make observations on things. I've always been a little bit, and maybe a lot of people see themselves this way, I've always seen myself as an outsider watching the world on television. I never really felt like I was part of the actual program. And so that's a double-edged sword, obviously. Sometimes you can feel disconnected, but sometimes it allows you to sort of observe things. And since I was given a good sense of humor, a lot of those, the combination of the ability to observe and have a sense of humor has basically made my career what it is.
And I'd love to understand back in childhood where you first took notice of that observant ability and how it really grew.
You know what? Honestly, if we're going to get raw here, I was a fat kid. And I think that what happens is, and a lot of people, it's not just being fat. You can have anything that makes you feel like an outsider. It literally can be anything. And I'm sure everybody has something. And but for me, that was something that made me feel like I was a little bit outside the experience, made me an observer. And then, of course, anybody who was an easy target for ridicule develops, I think, a very sharp defensive sense, and they live on their wits. So I think that really, as a child, is what honed me to become who I would eventually be, somebody with a very sharp wit and, an outsider. So.
And what have you learned about the positives and negatives of having a sharp wit or a dry sense of humor?
Well, for the most part, it's mostly positive. But I always say that people's negatives are the same characteristic as their positive, but like with a twist of lemon. Mm-hmm. So when I was younger, the ability to make a lightning fast response to something is you got to be careful with it, because what it really means is, yes, the mind is working fast. It's making connections. It doesn't always have a filter on it. And I felt when I was younger, I could lash out, and that same quick wit could very easily be a stab at somebody that would hurt somebody's feelings, cut somebody down, cut them to the quick. And it was because it was honed out of a defensive mechanism. And so that's definitely the downside of it. But, you get older and more mature, and like any gift or talent, whatever you do, you learn how to hone it, you learn how to control it a little bit better. And hopefully you get to a part where you can only use your special power for good.
Yeah. Really adding that empathy to the way in which you respond,
exactly.
react, and engage with people that
nails it.
Such a learning lesson.
Yeah.
Now, we've got a couple ways we can go in this conversation because you're an amazing lawyer, from what I hear.
Well, you must have been talking to my mother.
But you're an even more amazing entertainer.
Yeah, I think that's where more of the innovation comes from. There's a lot of really good lawyers out there, and I bet you could have people on here probably far more qualified than me to talk about that stuff. But the entertaining stuff,
They don't all have Emmys.
Yes, that's true. And if they do, they don't have 5 of them, folks. But no, it's. But yes, that I would say if you really want to look at me as an innovator or a disruptor, we'd have to focus on that side.
So, like, did you just wake up one day and say, "I've got a lot of extra advertising dollars. I want to do a show," or like, where did the idea?
No,
come from?
I didn't come up with the idea for us to develop BCTV. Which, for those of you who don't know, you can just go to bctv.com and get a good sense of what we're talking about. Our law firm has been advertising for 40 years. I've been there for 20. Ron Brown and Terry Crouppen started the place. They were innovators at the beginning. They were the first law firm in St. Louis to advertise on the radio, the first law firm to advertise on television, and as such, they really stepped into a bounty of growth because these were uncharted waters. Imagine being the first fisherman out on a fully stocked lake. And so they did very well, and they grew, and they were bold to advertise, and they were bold to say, you know what, let's hire more lawyers. We can actually, there's very few personal injury law firms that have 50 lawyers, and we've got to be one of the biggest in the country. So that sort of, got the ball rolling. Well, eventually you get to a part with your advertising dollars where it's very competitive in the market. There is a sea of sameness. Every lawyer commercial looks the same. Some guy gets on there and tells you, oh, if you've been hurt, we can do this for you, we can do that for you. We needed something to help us stand out, to build. We believed that brand awareness wasn't enough, that there was another layer we could get to, a brand affection that other brands in other industries have, even though people have never used it. I always use the example of like Rolex. People associate it with high quality, even if they've never seen one in person. How do we do that as a law firm? How do we deepen people's feelings toward us when they have never even used us? Maybe they've only heard of us. And that's where this thing kind of came from. And I would have to say Jeremy Corey over at Coolfire was the first guy to say, I think you guys can come up with some interesting, fun, entertaining digital content that can draw a lot of attention to your firm. Nobody wants, if you don't need a lawyer today, you don't want to hear from a lawyer. It's just not that interesting. But everybody on the internet and in a digital environment, they get to choose what they watch. We're an on-demand society. You can swipe, you can scroll, you can skip. So if you can't get people's attention and give them something that they're actually interested in, you're just not going to get their attention at all. And that's where this all came from.
So we've got the Ed versus.
Yes.
We've got the lawyers eating. What are some of your favorites?
Well, the on the Ed versus series, which of course is my baby, there are definitely ones I like better than others. The episode that's running right now, Ed versus bathrooms, is my favorite in that we put more work into this than any other one. I feel like it's simultaneously the most personal, but also the most relatable. And so, I got a little vulnerable here. I let people into, a different side of myself. I felt Ed versus Facebook. I enjoyed that one because I let people see a little bit of my dark side, in the hopes that other people would connect with that we all have a little bit of cynicism when it comes to social media. Mm-hmm. And that piece is really all about cynicism. Ed versus favorite things, which I put out for the Christmas season. I figured if Oprah can have her favorite things, Ed can have his favorite things. And that one was a blast to shoot. And, airplanes was the one that got me the first Emmy for best lifestyle program in the Mid-America region. And then elevators. A lot of people assume the cereal videos because I've done 3 different cereal videos. And I do love cereal. And those videos were a lot of fun, but just not nearly as fun as the other ones I mentioned. Elevators was a really fun one to shoot. I made a lot of good friends on that set. I didn't know any of those people ahead of time, but by the end of the day, we were all friends with each other. It was a great shoot.
Talk me through the process of getting into the creative side and flexing your muscles creatively. And then also, you're still a lawyer, and sometimes it's hard to hold those two very opposing identities at the same time.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest questions was, how will people view you? If you're doing these videos that are kind of, they're funny and they're observational, are they professional? Does the country want to hire a lawyer on a serious case? Perhaps somebody in their family was seriously injured. Do you hire the guy wearing a breakfast robe on television and talking about cereal? And we didn't know at first. It was a gamble. The response from the public, though, has told us everything, which is they appreciate the mind that goes into it. And what they are getting from it is, this guy is relatable. He's sharp. Look at the observations. Look at the case he just made for why we should never use a microwave, which is another one of my videos. I tap into a lot of nostalgia, which are happy memories for people. I have my video, Ed versus Candy, Ed versus Utensils, which are really trips down memory lane for people. And ultimately, those are the qualities they really do want to have in a lawyer. They want a sharp mind. They want somebody who can articulate. They want somebody who's relatable. And more important than anything else is likability. Nothing wins more trials than being likable. At the end of the day, whichever side a jury likes more wins the case. And that's just the reality of things. So if people can watch my videos and say, geez, this guy's really likable. I like watching him. He speaks to me. That's exactly what they want in their lawyer. That's where everything intersects with each other, is on the word likability. So it is not that hard for me to balance, quite frankly, because there are no two versions of me. There's one version, and sometimes my observations are comedic, and sometimes my observations are strategic. But it's the same. I don't switch gears. I don't have different personalities. The me that you get at breakfast on a Tuesday is the same me that you're going to get on a Friday night at wherever you're going to be. Just how I am.
It's interesting because I'm a recovering attorney, and that's why I asked the question. And a lot of lawyers, or those traditional white shoe professionals, have trouble showing up as their authentic selves, as their whole selves. And so what advice would you have to, those people that are in pretty stiff professional environments that really want to embrace the entirety of who they are?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think if you can sum up everything to a word that goes along with likability, so you say, okay, likability is the most important, but what makes a person likable? The word behind that is that they have to be genuine. That is what comes across. We're jaded as a society, more so each passing day. People have been sold a bill of goods on everything left and right. People are good, but cynical. And so they have a great nose for BS. And I know this because we've done focus groups where we've tried testimonials. And the focus groups, they want to know, was this a real client? Was the client paid? Was this scripted? Did they actually do this? Is this coming? I mean, they really dissect, because all they really want is something that's honest. Just give them something honest. I actually think the public would respond better to a lawyer who came out and said, listen, I can't guarantee you that I'm going to win every case I handle. Anybody that guarantees you that is maybe not challenging themselves with hard cases. All I know is that I approach every case with a tremendous competitiveness, a desire to get into the facts and work as hard as I can to get the best result that I can. And to me, I think that's the kind of promise that's accurate and genuine. And I think people would react to that far better than somebody just coming on and waving around all of their past results with big money. Because I think most people look at that and they're like, oh, well, of course, every firm's got their 10 best results. What are you going to do for me? So yeah, I think that's, to me, is what the public really wants. They just don't want the nonsense. Just show them who you are, and hopefully you're a likable person and they take to you. If you're not a likable person, then you maybe don't want to make yourself the front man or front woman for your firm. Maybe you want to find somebody else who connects a little bit better with people.
This is good advice for any profession and for just being human.
Right. And you know what? And in any firm, any company, good leadership knows when to step away from a role. If you really are interested in your company and growing, you don't have to be the guy or the gal, whatever. You don't have to be the one. You have to spot the one and let them do it. And Terry Croupen's been a phenomenal spokesperson on television for years, and he's very engaging. And Andy's great too. And we do the Three Lawyers Eating Sandwiches together, and they're great on that show. But they were not afraid to let, when the Ed Versus show kind of took off and the crowd took to it, they didn't get all threatened by it and say, oh, Ed's starting to get all of this attention. We need to, let's lighten up on the gas a little bit and get ourselves. No, they recognize this is good for the business. It's good for everybody. And they were very supportive, and they let me, do my thing. So I think that's what you have to have as you run a business is, either you want to actually be very successful, or you just want to think of yourself as being very successful. But if you actually want to be successful, you got to know when to be the guy and when to step away and let somebody else be the guy.
So everything's going the way that you've planned. What are the challenges that you have right now?
Oh, geez. I can't
I'm
even,
being facetious.
don't give me enough credit to say that everything's going the way we planned. We had no plan. The challenges are always coming up with new and interesting things. You always feel like you want to top yourself. You never know when you're going to run out of creativity. I mean, that's just, I think, a panic that everybody has. I said, geez, I've done 18 episodes of Ed Versus. They're all meaty. It's several hours of material. And we shoot a lot and edit it down. I mean, I shot over an hour and 5 minutes of totally original material for Ed Versus Bathrooms. And then we cut it down to 11 minutes, which is probably still too long for a video. But I did it anyway because, I made the mistake of falling in love with my project. And that's, you lose a little bit of objectivity there. But we got 50 plus minutes of, decent material just sitting on a floor somewhere. And that happens on a lot of the videos. I mean, we normally don't do more than one take of anything because I don't script.
Do you wait till the day of to start?
I always have an outline that I've jotted down. I want to talk on this subject. I want to talk on that subject. But I find that to capture the genuineness, it's much better to just be in the moment and do it for the first time, sort of right there for the camera, because that might be the best version you get. I don't want to waste any versions without a camera rolling. What if that was my best version and you didn't get it? I generally will just go do it all, and then the art of it's the editing. And I do the editing. I work with somebody who does the technical side, but I sit there and I pick everything that goes along because I figure it's gonna have my name on it and whatever. And to me, that's the most fun part of the process is the editing. I like the idea of being painted into a corner, saying, well, this is all you have to work with. Now you got to put it all together and come up with something good, because I never go back to the studio a second time to shoot. It's like, this is what you have, make it work. And I love that challenge. That to me is the best part of the process.
It's actually much like a case. Like, you get the facts you get.
Exactly. You know what?
Got the law
You are dead. You are dead on correct on that. It is. It's very much like that. I always tell people in the movie Apollo 13, there's a great scene where they have to connect these two hoses. And, they only have on the ship what they have. And so, in Houston, they put a bunch of equipment on a table and they tell somebody, you got to make this fit into that. And this is all the equipment that you have at your disposal. And I always thought, well, geez, that's exactly what editing is. And what more fun could be than that? Who doesn't love a puzzle?
I think it's the ultimate test of creativity, where you have limited circumstances and you have to create something that's going to be amazing and compelling as the end product.
I do think that limitation is the fuel that sparks it. That's why a show like Saturday Night Live, it's not always brilliant. When it is, it's great, but what forces it is you've got a week to put on a show. And you don't know what's going to happen during the week in the news that you have to cover during that week. And this is your only cast members, and this happens to be the host that we've known about for a year, but we didn't know it was going to be this week. And to me, that would be the whole excitement of working on something like that kind of show. It's all about the limitations.
So what advice would you have to maybe other organizations or people that are looking for what you describe as the deep brand affection? Because I'm sure there's some intentionality and a little bit of strategy that goes into that process.
Absolutely. And we work, and I've done this just on the side with Coolfire, with other businesses who are trying to create digital content that's actually fun to watch so that people want to watch it. It's important for industries like ours where I don't sell hamburgers. If I sold hamburgers, I would make my advertising all about getting people hungry for a hamburger, and then you'd see the spike in sales and it would work. But when you're in a business like law, people do not need a lawyer today. 99% of the public or more doesn't need you. Just like somebody who does plumbing, the public doesn't need you today. They will need you eventually, just like an electrician, just like roof repair. There's all these industries that until there's a need, you're kind of don't care about any of them, And then a need arises, and who do you remember? You're scrambling around. So what I would tell people is, don't worry about being funny. There's a lot of ways to be helpful, entertaining, but it all boils down to genuine. So if I was running a company that did plumbing, I probably would be producing a series of videos showing people step by step how to handle simple repairs. and really become like a resource of information so that they could subscribe, and you have a whole series of these videos if people are interested. I mean, I will watch things on the internet. My God, I've seen people take a rusty tool, a rusty axe, and I watch them bring it back to life. And I'll watch it for 10 minutes. And I'm like, all the guy's doing is getting the rust off and sharpening it up and putting a new handle on. But people are drawn to so many things like that. When they see a person who's expert at their craft, they want to see them do it. So people want to be entertained, but they also want to learn. And to be genuine, you have to talk about whatever it is that you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. I've told lawyers, listen, nobody wants to hear about you talk about the law. You're not even that good of a lawyer, quite frankly. But you are really good at fitness. You know you have an amazing routine. It's what you're truly passionate about. So don't do something about the law. Go into your community and do episodes about where are the best places to eat healthy, what you order on menus when you go out, how you keep yourself fit, best walking paths, best biking paths. You know, all of these things that are in the community, it accomplishes so many objectives. And you're going to build a connection with people because they're going to feel the genuineness. They're going to feel your passion. That's the part that's contagious. That's what draws people. Doesn't matter what you do for a living. People see that, it draws them in. It's hypnotic for people.
That's golden. And with that, it's time for the lightning round.
Oh, lightning round. I like that. None of this is planned ahead of time. I didn't know what any of those questions would be, and I certainly don't know what this is all about.
You're in for a surprise.
I love surprises.
What can you do that you could not do a year ago?
I would say, I actually took up some target shooting. I hadn't done that before. I could play a bunch of songs on the piano that I couldn't do a year ago because I spent a lot of time during COVID teaching myself some piano. So there you go.
What is most important to you?
Honestly, I mean, if I'm going to be selfish for a second, getting peaceful sleep at night, you know, which means that you have to have all of your sort of anxieties under control and in place. All the things that would keep you up at night are sort of in a good place. And if you can sleep the sleep of the peaceful, that's everything.
What does this world need more of?
Empathy, compassion. I think we need more people who are willing to recognize that most of what they state as fact is probably opinion. Most of what they state as opinion is probably not an expert opinion. And most of what they express is really a preference and not an opinion at all.
Mm-hmm. What is one of the kindest things someone has ever done for you?
The list goes on forever. I mean, if any of us really took the time to think about the kindnesses that people have shown us, whether they realize it or not, the list goes on forever. The fact that anybody even tunes in for my videos at all, enjoys them, takes the time to write things, I mean, that's a wonderful kindness. My mother making the sacrifices that she made in her life to make sure that I got to do the things that I did. I get it from my children, from everybody. I mean, it's just, it's everywhere if you just, look for it.
Mm-hmm. What challenge do you want to overcome?
Let's see. I think I want to overcome a little bit that thing of not understanding it when someone doesn't like me. That I hate that I spend more time trying to win over people that don't like me than I spend appreciating the people that do like me. So that's a journey, but I'd like to get to the place where, you know what, let me just take all my energy appreciating the people that already like me, and the ones that don't, let me just accept the fact that they don't and not take it personally.
Mm-hmm. We internalize so much of that.
Yeah.
So last question, if you could run your own country, what would it be like?
I think that my main goal, quite frankly, would be something a little bit more equitable. Mm-hmm. I love our country, obviously, and it's given me phenomenal opportunities. I think just like a person, how they say you can't solve a problem until you acknowledge you have a problem, and then you got to go through a lot of steps to try to get out of it, and it's not easy. I think that I think our country, it needs to acknowledge when it has a problem. It's perfectly fine. Countries have problems. And I would like to run a country that does that. If we didn't get something right, if we made a mistake, make it right, make it better.
Awesome.
Ed, how can people find all of the content? How can they get in touch with Brown and Crouppen, find you on social media, all that good stuff?
Yeah, the easiest way to see all the entertainment content is just go to bctv.com. That is sort of set up like a Netflix where you can binge watch any of the series that we've done. All 18 episodes of Ed Versus, all 17 episodes so far of Three Lawyers Eating Sandwiches, plus a bunch of other stuff we've done. And of course, the law firm Brown and Crouppen. In the St. Louis area, it's 314-222-2222. In the Kansas City area, it is 816-777-7777. So all 2s here, all 7s there. And, we're happy to, people always, they don't realize that you can call us and talk to a lawyer without putting any money out of your pocket. We do free consultations. If you have a case, we're going to be honest with you. We work on a contingent basis. So if we're not successful, you don't owe us anything. And if we don't think that you have a case, we're going to explain why. Or if we think you have a case that maybe would be better handled by another attorney, we'll explain that and we'll put you in touch with the attorney that we think would do a better job for you. So we really do try to help every person that calls us on the phone, whether we represent them or not.
Excellent. This has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you for listening to Innovation City. If you like this episode, you can find more episodes at innovationcity.co or anywhere where you watch or listen to podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next week.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they